My name is Grace. I'm 32, and for as long as I can remember, I believed I was meant to lead the company my parents built, not because I wanted the title, but because I had earned it. Late nights, missed birthdays, years of school internships and work, every step of my life was pointed toward one thing, taking care of the business and one day taking it forward. But when that moment came, they chose my younger sister. She was smart, charming, well liked, but I was the one who built the strategy. I was the one who brought in the $1 million client. I was the one who stayed. And still they looked right past me. Have you ever felt that? Like the people who were supposed to see you, really see you, just didn't? It's a specific kind of heartbreak. And maybe you've lived it too. If you have, stay with me. This isn't just about business. It's about being overlooked, underestimated, and what happens when you finally stop asking for permission to take back your power. And if this story already feels a little familiar, drop a comment below and let me know. Have you ever been passed over for something you gave everything to? I grew up around client calls and paper stacks. While other kids played in backyards, I sat in my dad's office coloring on the backs of old marketing briefs. Our family's business wasn't just work, it was air. It filled our home, our dinner tables, our weekends. I learned to read off pitch decks before bedtime stories. My parents, Thomas and Elaine, started Johnson and Company the year before I was born. They built it from scratch, just the two of them, one desk, one phone line. By the time I was 6, I could list their top 5 clients. By 10, I was drafting mock ads for fun. It wasn't play, it was passion. It felt like my future. Then Claire was born, my younger sister. 2 years behind me, all light and laughter. Where I liked numbers, plans, structure, she loved colors, people, and stories. We were different but close. I thought we'd grow into the business together, like two sides of the same coin. My dad used to say, Grace has the mind, Claire has the heart. One day both will lead. I believed him. I built my life around that promise. But sometimes the people who shape your path are the same ones who push you off it. Have you ever been raised to believe in something, only to find out it was never truly yours? Claire and I were raised in the same house, but we were not raised the same. I lived for the business. Numbers made sense to me, clean, logical, fair. I loved building things, solving problems, making systems work. Claire. She floated through the world like it owed her nothing. Charming, artistic, always drawing dresses or planning imaginary events. My dad praised me for being sharp. Grace sees 10 moves ahead, he'd tell clients with pride. He called me his strategist. But Mom, she lit up when Claire walked in. Always showing off her sketches, her kindness, her smile. They said we were both talented, but the way they looked at her was softer. I got compliments when I achieved something. Claire got affection just for being herself. They didn't mean to pick favorites. But kids notice, and what I noticed stayed with me. Still, I didn't question it, because I believed that effort mattered. That if I worked hard enough, stayed focused long enough, everything would balance out. So while Claire spent summers at art camps and retail jobs, I was in the office filing, listening, learning. I wasn't just preparing for the business. I was preparing to carry it. Do you know what it's like? To give your all to something while someone else is loved just for showing up. By high school, the path was clear. Claire had freedom. I had purpose. She spent her summers traveling, working in boutiques, chasing inspiration. I spent mine at the office learning email systems, sitting in client meetings, organizing campaign archives. No one told me to, but it felt expected, like breathing. When it came time for college, I chose Northwestern. Their marketing program was the best. I graduated with honors, went straight into an MBA at Columbia Digital Strategy Business Development Analytics. 6 years of focused growth, every move calculated. Every step 1 inch closer to the future I thought was mine. Meanwhile, Claire bounced around. Started with fashion design, switched to business halfway through. Graduated from University of Illinois, solid but not driven, not like me. While I interned at top agencies in New York, Claire worked part-time and lived with friends. But still, our parents talked about us like we were equal, like we were on the same track, just moving at different speeds. It stung sometimes. But I kept going, because I believe that results spoke louder than charm. And when I finally came home to join the company full-time, I was ready. Degree in hand, experience under my belt, and a vision for the future. Have you ever returned home thinking you'd earned your place, only to find the ground already shifting beneath your feet? When I returned to Chicago, I thought I was stepping into my future. I imagined walking into the office as a leader, someone they'd been waiting for. Instead, I was given a mid-level role, marketing strategist. Respectable, but underwhelming. Still, I didn't argue. I told myself, earn it again, show them. So I did. I rebuilt our digital operations, introduced analytics tools, automated client follow-ups, modernized every pitch. Within 2 years, I brought in 3 major clients. Revenue jumped 32%. Clients started asking for me by name. My parents were proud but never surprised. This is what we raised you for, Dad said once. It was meant as praise, but it felt like pressure. Then Claire joined. She started in client relations. No big expectations, no pressure, just warmth. And she was good, better than I expected. Clients loved her charm, her ease in conversations, her energy. We became a solid team strategy and sparkle. She made people feel good. I made things work. But slowly, I noticed something. Clients I brought in were credited to us. Praises were shared, toasts raised in both our names. Even when I stayed late, cleaned up the mess, made it happen, the spotlight always seemed to find Claire. That's when the doubt started to whisper. Have you ever done everything right only to feel like someone else was being handed your moment? The company was thriving. Claire and I worked side by side. She dazzled in presentations. I handled the back end, the metrics, the execution. Clients seemed to love the balance. They said we made a great team, and we did. But when the applause came, it always leaned toward her. It started small. A compliment skipped my way. A client email forwarded only to Claire. Then came the big dinners. Quarterly reviews, Dad raising his glass to Claire for bringing in such great energy this quarter. Even if it was a deal I'd closed, a strategy I'd built, a campaign I'd stayed up nights perfecting. I smiled every time, because that's what you do when it's family. But inside something shifted. I started to feel invisible, like all my effort was just expected. Claire's charm. It was celebrated. My results. Just part of the machine. Still, I kept going because I believed there was a plan, a natural order. I had the degrees, the client wins, the long nights, the long-term vision. One day when our parents stepped back, I'd be the one to lead. Surely they saw it. Surely they knew. But sometimes people don't reward loyalty. They reward what looks good in a room. Have you ever waited patiently thinking your moment would come only to realize it may never have been yours at all? Then came Harper Industries, a national tech firm, fast-growing, demanding, and exactly the kind of client that could change everything. I spent 2 years building that relationship. Lunches, late-night calls, free consultations, not for show, not for praise, just to prove we could be the right fit. Susan, their CMO, confided in me. They were planning to consolidate all their marketing with one agency, a $1 million annual contract, minimum 3 years. They trusted me, not just the company me. I built the pitch, assembled a team, wrote the strategy from the ground up. It wasn't just a campaign. It was a turning point. With Harper on board, I saw a future, an expansion to Denver, new hires, a second office, a new chapter for the company with me at the helm. I presented the plan to my parents. They nodded, impressed. This is strong work, Grace, Dad said. Let's have Claire look at it too. And just like that, the ground shifted. A subtle move, a familiar pattern. Claire would add perspective. She'd bring energy to the pitch. But I knew that client inside out. I'd built the trust. I'd crafted every detail. Still I smiled. Still I said yes. Because I thought I was too close to the finish line to turn back. Have you ever felt it, that first crack in something you thought was solid? At first, it was just Claire giving input. A few notes on tone, some tweaks to the slide visuals. Nothing major. Then my parents suggested we co-present. She'd handle the opening, I'd cover the strategy. I bit my tongue, swallowed the frustration. But soon it shifted again. "We think Claire should lead the pitch," Dad said one evening. "You'll be there to support with the details." I stared at him. Support? I had lived and breathed this client for 2 years. I knew their goals, their fears, their future roadmap, and now I was just the background. I tried to stay calm. "I've built this entire campaign. I know what Harper needs." Mom smiled gently. "We know Grace, but Claire connects. Clients respond to her energy." Then came the sentence I'll never forget. "Grace, you're too emotionally invested in this account. Too emotionally invested." As if that were a flaw. As if passion, dedication made me a risk. It echoed in my head for days, and something in me cracked. Because when you give everything and still get told you're too much, you start to wonder if there's any version of you they'll ever accept. Have you ever been told your strength was a weakness? That caring too deeply disqualified you? That's when I realized this wasn't about fairness anymore. It was about control, and I was losing mine. I kept going because that's what I'd always done. Push through, deliver, prove. So while Claire rehearsed her opening lines, I worked on something bigger, a full expansion strategy for the company. If we secured Harper Industries, we'd finally have the revenue to grow, open a second office in Denver, tap into a booming tech market. I had it all mapped out. Projected hires, leasing options, regional targets. 3 years ahead. It was more than a pitch. It was a vision. I shared it with my parents, slide by slide, detail by detail. Their reactions, polite, impressed, but not moved. "Let's close the Harper deal first," Dad said. "We can revisit after." Fair, logical, but I saw it in their eyes. This wasn't a plan they saw me leading. Something had already shifted, and they weren't saying it out loud, not yet. So I waited, worked, held on, told myself once this deal is done, they'll have to see. Because if bringing in a $1 million client while designing the next 3 years of growth doesn't show you're ready, what will? Have you ever done everything right, everything by the book, and still felt like the ending was being written without you? That's how it begins. Not with a shout, but with silence. 3 weeks before the Harper pitch, my parents invited Claire and me to dinner. Gibson's Steakhouse, the place they only reserved for big occasions, anniversaries, major client wins, milestone celebrations. Dad didn't text. He called, said, "We have something important to discuss." My stomach tightened. I thought, this is it. The moment I'd waited my whole life for. I spent the day reviewing numbers, polishing the growth plan, printing copies for them both. I was ready to step in, step up, lead. We arrived. Mom had already ordered champagne. Claire walked in late, a little flustered. Then after the small talk faded, Dad cleared his throat and reached for Mom's hand. "As you know, we've been thinking about retirement," he began. "We're ready to start stepping back." My heart pounded. I smiled. This was it. "We're proud of both of you," Mom added. "You've contributed in different meaningful ways." I nodded, still waiting for the words, still holding my breath. Then Dad raised his glass to the future of Johnson Marketing and to our new CEO. Pause, just long enough to shatter something inside me. Claire. The champagne turned sour in my mouth. I smiled. I nodded. I even congratulated her. But inside, everything I believed about myself cracked. Have you ever smiled through heartbreak because the people breaking you were the same ones you spent your life trying to make proud? The rest of the dinner passed in slow motion. Words blurred. Laughter felt distant. I smiled when spoken to. I nodded when required. But inside, I was sinking. Claire looked happy but unsure, like she knew something wasn't right but couldn't stop it from happening. My parents talked about the transition plan. Claire as CEO. Me as Chief Strategy Officer reporting to her. They painted it as balance, complementary roles. 2 strong women leading side by side, Mom said. But I knew what it was. A consolation prize, wrapped in family language. I had spent my life preparing for this company. I had walked the long road, earned every credential, fought for every client, and in one toast, I was quietly removed from the future I thought was mine. On the drive home, the night unraveled. I remembered the late nights, the weekends, the relationships I gave up, the version of myself I buried to be the right daughter. I went to bed but didn't sleep, just lay there. Eyes open, heart closed. I kept hearing it. Claire will be taking over as CEO. Like a line from a play where I'd been cast in the wrong role. Have you ever realized in one single moment that the dream you lived for was never truly promised to you? That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just lay still, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand where I went wrong. Was it something I missed? Some moment I failed? Had I been too focused, too serious? Too much. By morning, sadness turned to something sharper. I needed answers. I asked my parents for a private meeting. They agreed. Same office where I'd sat for years, pitching strategies, reviewing campaigns, building the future. This time I walked in with a different question. Why Claire? They didn't look surprised, just tired. Grace, you're incredible at what you do, Dad began. The company wouldn't be here without you. But I said, I needed to hear it. But leadership is more than strategy, Mom said softly. Claire has warmth. She connects. She inspires. And I asked. You can be intense, Dad said. Brilliant but intense. Clients respect you, but Claire makes them feel something. Every word felt like being rewritten. All the traits they once praised now framed as flaws. The long hours, the structure, the sacrifice. Now, reasons I wasn't balanced enough to lead. Have you ever heard someone describe you in a way that made you question everything you thought was good about yourself? I sat there quiet, letting their words sink in. Not because I agreed, but because deep down I already knew. This wasn't about logic. It wasn't about results. It was about who they saw as the face of the company, and it wasn't me. They didn't say it outright. But I heard it in every pause, every careful phrase. Claire's more balanced. She brings lightness. She represents what the company is becoming. What was I then, the one who built it? But never meant to lead it. I asked one last question. If I say no to being CSO under Claire, what happens? They hesitated. Another glance between them. We hope you'll reconsider, Mom said. The company needs you, Grace, but not enough to trust me with it. That's when it became clear. No promotion, no client, no award would ever make them see me differently. I wasn't the daughter they envisioned at the top. I was the one who kept the wheels turning, and I knew right then I could stay and spend my life proving my worth to people who had already decided, or I could walk away. Have you ever faced that kind of choice, not between success and failure, but between who you are and who they want you to be? I left that meeting with perfect clarity and a hollow kind of calm, the kind that comes when something finally breaks. Not loudly, not all at once, but quietly after holding too much for too long. They had never seen me as the future. No matter how hard I worked, no matter how much I proved, they said I was too intense, but they had raised me to be that way, to aim higher, to outwork, to earn it. And now that it was the very thing used against me. That night I called Linda, my best friend, the only one who had seen the whole journey. They said, I'm too focused, I told her, too driven to lead. She didn't hesitate. That's not a flaw, Grace. That's your edge. They're punishing you for the very thing that built their company. Her words shook something loose in me, not anger, not rebellion. Grief. Grief for the years I gave, for the version of me that kept believing they'd choose me if I just did a little more, for the child who wanted their approval and the woman who finally saw it was never coming. I went to work the next day, but something had shifted. Have you ever reached that silent breaking point when staying feels heavier than leaving? When you know, deep down, it's already over. The days that followed were a blur. I showed up, sat through meetings, revised the Harper pitch deck, answered emails like nothing had changed, but everything had. I avoided Claire when I could, avoided my parents even more. She sent calendar invites. Let's align on messaging. Quick sync before final pitch. I declined them all, not out of pettiness, but because I couldn't pretend anymore. Harper had been my account, my vision. Now it felt like I was just filling in the blanks. Still, I worked. Because walking away from the client was harder than walking away from the company, until one night as I packed up to leave, Claire stopped me in the hallway. "Grace, please. We need to talk." I didn't answer, just looked at her. "I know you're upset," she said. "You have every right to be." I asked one question, quiet but sharp. "Did you know before the dinner?" Her pause was short but long enough. Then came the truth. "They told me the week before," she whispered. "I told them to reconsider. Said you were more prepared. But when they didn't, I thought we could lead together." Her voice broke a little, and for the first time I saw it. Claire hadn't stolen the seat. She'd been handed it. But knowing that didn't make it hurt less. "Have you ever realized the person you're angry at isn't the one who broke you?" Claire wasn't the villain. That much was clear. She didn't ask for the role. But she didn't say no either. "I thought we could lead together," she said. "That your strategy and my people skills," I stopped her. "My strategy, my relationships, my years of groundwork, and your—" "What, smile?" She went quiet. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Because for once, I wasn't trying to protect the moment. I was telling the truth. "You joined 4 years ago. I've lived this company since I was a child. This isn't a misunderstanding, Claire. It's a choice." She looked at me, eyes glassy. "I'm sorry it happened this way." And she meant it. But sorry doesn't rebuild what's already been erased. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't make lists, didn't weigh pros and cons, didn't ask for anyone's opinion, because deep down the decision had already been made, not out of anger, not even sadness anymore, just clarity. The next morning, I asked my parents for one last meeting, late afternoon, private conference room. They looked hopeful, maybe thinking I'd come around, that I was ready to move forward. They didn't realize I was already gone. Have you ever felt that stillness right before you change your life? That quiet certainty that says, this isn't your place anymore? The conference room felt colder than usual. Maybe it was just me. Dad tried small talk, updates on a client project. I let him speak, then gently interrupted. "I've been reflecting," I said, calm, steady, "on everything that's happened. And I have a few direct questions." They nodded, cautious. "When did you decide Claire would be CEO? Was it based on recent performance, or was it always the plan?" The silence told me enough, but I waited anyway. Dad cleared his throat. "We've always seen different strengths in both of you. Claire has a presence. She naturally draws people in, so it had always been her." I asked another question. "What specific leadership traits does she have that I don't?" Another glance between them. Then came the words. "She builds consensus. She's diplomatic where you're more direct. People feel comfortable around her, and that makes me..." What, too direct? Too focused? They didn't answer, because they didn't have to. I opened the folder in front of me, slid it across the table. "This is my resignation. Effective immediately." Their faces dropped. Mom's hand flew to her chest. Dad looked stunned. "Grace, no, be reasonable. Harper's pitch is in 2 weeks. We need you." I nodded. "You did. But you didn't choose me, and now I'm choosing myself. Have you ever watched someone realize too late what they had when it's already walking away? They thought I was bluffing, that I'd cool down, come back. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. "I've prepared full documentation on the Harper account," I said. "Campaign details, contact history, strategy notes, everything is in that folder." Dad leaned forward. "This isn't smart, Grace. You've worked so hard, don't throw it away." I met his eyes. "This isn't about being smart, it's about being respected. And I won't work under someone who was handed what I earned." Mom's voice was softer. "Let's adjust the roles. Talk compensation. We can find balance." I shook my head. "It's not the title, it's the truth. You don't see me as a leader. And I can't stay somewhere that keeps asking me to shrink." Dad tried once more. "Life isn't always fair." I nodded. And that's why I'm leaving. The meeting ended without shouting, no slammed doors, just a strange stillness. Like everyone in the room knew something had ended that wouldn't come back. Outside, Claire was waiting. Her eyes were red. She had heard enough to understand. "You're leaving," she whispered. I didn't lash out, didn't blame her. "This isn't about you," I said. "It's about knowing when enough is enough." Have you ever walked out of a room knowing it would change everything and still felt lighter than you had in years? Cleaning out my office felt surreal. 5 years of work tucked into 3 cardboard boxes. Client awards, notebooks filled with strategies. The leather portfolio Dad gave me when I joined, now just a reminder of what wasn't. Monica, my assistant, helped me pack. She didn't ask questions, but her eyes were glossy. "I didn't think you'd ever leave." "I didn't either," I said quietly. She wrapped my Northwestern alumni plaque in tissue paper. "What will you do now?" I paused. "I don't know, but I know what I won't do: stay where I'm not seen." One by one, team members stopped by. Some hugged me, some stood silently, unsure of what to say. Ethan, our newest analyst, looked crushed. "You taught me everything I know about digital strategy," he said. "It won't be the same without you." I smiled at him, but part of me broke again, because they knew. The people in the trenches with me, they saw it. What I gave, what I built, and somehow the ones at the top didn't. I carried my boxes to the elevator, one last walk through the place I once called home. It didn't feel like defeat. It felt like release. Have you ever left somewhere not because you couldn't stay, but because staying would have cost you too much of yourself? Before I left the building for good, there was one more thing I needed to do. I stepped outside, found a quiet bench, and called Susan Harper's CMO. She picked up right away. "Grace. Everything okay?" I kept my tone steady. "I wanted you to hear it from me. As of today, I've resigned from Johnson Marketing." Silence. Then a sharp inhale. "You're kidding," she said. "This entire campaign is you. You built the relationship. You understood us." I nodded, even though she couldn't see. "I've passed all materials to the team. They'll follow through." Susan paused. "You know this changes things." "I understand," I said. "I'm not here to convince you either way. You need what's best for your brand." Her voice softened. "You were the reason we considered Johnson at all. Without you, it's not the same." I didn't ask her to pull out. Didn't make it personal. That wasn't who I was. But hearing her words, they filled a space my parents never did. Validation, quiet, real, earned. After we hung up, I looked at the building one last time. The one I had once believed I'd lead. Then I walked away. No title, no office. But for the first time in years, I felt like mine again. Have you ever let go of something you thought defined you only to find out you were never lost at all? The first week after I left felt like drifting. I moved into a hotel, no routines, no meetings, just me, my laptop, and 3 boxes I hadn't unpacked. Chicago felt smaller. Every street held a memory. Every corner reminded me of what I used to believe was my future. I needed space, real space. So I booked a one-way ticket to Denver. The city I had once planned to expand into now became my escape. I found a small 1-bedroom apartment in the Rhino district. Quiet, clean, no expectations, no family photos on the wall, no framed awards, just blankness. And strangely, that felt right. Each morning, I'd wake up reaching for a company phone that no longer existed, and then I'd remember I was no longer someone's employee, no longer their fallback. It was terrifying, but also freeing. I didn't know what I would do next. Consult, start something new, or maybe nothing for a while. But one thing was certain, I wasn't going back. Not to the role they offered, not to the version of me that stayed small just to be accepted. Have you ever stepped away from everything without a plan, without a promise, just because your soul whispered, "It's time"? The first month in Denver was the hardest, not because I doubted my decision, but because the silence was so loud. No client calls, no fire drills, no inbox overflowing by 9 a.m., just stillness, and the echo of everything I'd left behind. Some mornings I forgot. I'd sit up, heart racing, thinking I was late for a pitch. Then I'd remember there was no meeting, there was no company anymore. I started walking miles each day through side streets, art alleys, old neighborhoods. I watched strangers live their lives without knowing who I was or what I had just walked away from. There was a strange comfort in that. Linda called often. "Are you okay?" she'd ask. I never had a clean answer, mostly. Some days I feel strong, other days hollow. She always listened, never rushed me. And slowly the space began to shift. Not fill, but stretch. A flicker of something new. Not purpose exactly, but possibility. I started writing again. Not business plans, just thoughts, ideas, fragments, pieces of something that might become real later. No pressure this time, just curiosity. Have you ever sat inside your own life with no one watching, no expectations, and asked yourself, what do I want now? By the second month, the fog began to lift just a little. I wasn't healed, but I was awake again. I reached out to a few old contacts, not for a job, just to say hello, to remind myself that I still had a place in the world. One of them replied almost instantly. Barbara, a former client from years back. "We need someone to audit our marketing strategy," she said. "Someone who's honest, someone who isn't afraid to tell us what's broken." Then came the words I hadn't heard in a while. "I thought of you." It was a small project, modest pay, but it lit something inside me, not because it was flashy, but because it was mine. I accepted, not to prove anything, but to say yes to myself for the first time in a long time. For 6 weeks, I rebuilt their systems, clarified their messaging, implemented what I knew not from textbooks, but from living it. At the end of it, Barbara smiled and said, "You gave us more in a month than the last agency gave us in a year." It wasn't applause. It wasn't a promotion, but it was real. And it was enough. Have you ever done something small that reminded you you're still damn good at what you do? Even if others forgot, word traveled faster than I expected. Barbara told a colleague. That colleague told another. Soon I had 3 new inquiries, then 5. I wasn't chasing anything, but work kept finding me. Consulting sessions, strategy overhauls, brand repositioning. No big office, no title on the door. Just a desk by the window in my apartment, a laptop, and the voice I'd almost forgotten I had. By month 4, I was turning down projects, not because I couldn't do them, but because I could finally choose. I leased a small space in a co-working hub, nothing fancy. A desk, 2 chairs, and a whiteboard that held more vision than any boardroom I'd ever sat in. And then I did something bold. I gave it a name, Summit Marketing. Not Johnson, not my family's legacy, just me and the climb I had made alone. No press release, no big launch, just steady, quiet momentum. One win at a time, one client who stayed, one who referred someone new. And I started to feel it, not revenge, but restoration. A sense of self that wasn't tied to anyone else's approval. Have you ever built something quietly after being told you weren't the right fit, only to realize you didn't need a seat at their table, you could build your own? In month 5, I got a call I didn't expect. "Hi, I hope it's okay." I reached out. It was Monica, my old assistant from Johnson. Her voice was careful, almost nervous. "Things feel different since you left," she said. "Claire's trying, but without your structure, your clarity, it's all over the place." She paused. "They're not using the analytics platform you built. Clients are noticing." I didn't gloat. I didn't need to, because even though I had walked away, what I created was still speaking for itself. Then came the question I didn't see coming. "Would you ever consider bringing someone on?" She meant herself. I hadn't planned to hire. Summit was still small, lean, just me managing it all. But Monica, she knew my rhythm. She made things smoother. She believed in what I was building. "I can't offer full corporate perks yet," I said, "but I can promise this: you won't be overlooked here." 2 weeks later, she moved to Denver. We set up her desk beside mine, 2 women starting fresh on our own terms. That day, as we unpacked, she looked around and said, This feels different. Like we're building something real. We were. Have you ever had someone believe in you? Not because you had a title, but because they saw who you really were when no one else did. With Monica on board, everything accelerated. She handled client calls, scheduled meetings, streamlined the chaos I didn't realize I'd been juggling. I finally had space to think, to build. We needed a real website, a brand voice, a way to tell the world who we were without leaning on a name I no longer used. I drafted some copy. Monica said one morning, "It's based on your methods. The way you think, the way you lead." I read it in silence. It sounded like me, more me than any bio I'd ever written. We hired a designer, chose a deep blue palette, simple lines, honest language. Summit marketing was no longer a quiet idea. It was a living thing. Clients responded. They said it felt clear, not loud, not flashy, just real. By month 6, we had 8 regular clients. Referrals kept coming. And for the first time, I wasn't reacting to someone else's plan. I was writing my own. No one asked who my parents were. No one cared about the company I left. They just saw results. Elevation marketing, our signature approach, was gaining attention. Data-backed, human-centered, everything I'd fought to build now with my name on it. Have you ever looked at something and realized, this is mine, not borrowed, not inherited, earned? We were working late one evening, Monica and I finalizing a deck for a new client. She set down a cup of tea beside me, her usual quiet gesture when she sensed I needed a pause. Then she hesitated. "There's something you should know." I looked up. Thomas from Analytics, he's still at Johnson. He told me Harper Industries canceled their contract after only 3 months. I didn't say anything. They said the strategy didn't match the execution, that the leadership wasn't aligned with the original pitch. My pitch. The one Claire had presented. It didn't surprise me, but it didn't feel satisfying either. Just quiet confirmation. I had been right. About the client, about the outcome, about what happens when you ignore the builder and chase the face. Monica studied me. "I thought you'd want to know." "I do," I said, and I meant it, not because I wanted them to fail, but because I needed to know my work had mattered. Even if they couldn't see it, then clients did, and that's what stayed. That night, I didn't celebrate, didn't post about it, didn't say I told you so. I just sat with the truth. Have you ever received quiet proof that walking away wasn't weakness, it was wisdom? And sometimes that's all the closure you'll ever need. A few weeks later, something unexpected happened. An industry newsletter featured Summit Marketing, a spotlight on emerging firms transforming client expectations. Our approach, elevation marketing, was front and center. Clear messaging, real-time analytics, client-centered strategy. I hadn't pitched the article, hadn't chased visibility, but there we were, my name, our work in black and white. The response was immediate. Emails, LinkedIn messages, new leads, old colleagues reaching out with quiet admiration. But one message stood out. A contact form submission from a commercial real estate developer, Westfield Corporation. "We're looking to overhaul our entire marketing operation. Your team's clarity and results-focused process stood out." The contract, 3 years, $2 million, double the Harper deal. I read the number again and again, not because I was shocked by the value, but by the symmetry. I hadn't just recovered. I'd surpassed what they thought was my ceiling, without legacy, without family ties, just results. Monica looked at me wide-eyed. "This changes everything." And it did. Not just in revenue, but in proof. Proof that what I built was real on my terms. Have you ever quietly built something only to watch it grow louder than every doubt anyone ever spoke over you? Not for revenge, but for your own becoming. A week after the Westfield deal was finalized, Monica walked into my office, her voice low. "Your dad's here." I looked up stunned. "Thomas?" She nodded. "He's in the lobby. Said he'd wait. Wants to talk. Just a few minutes." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no, but curiosity and something deeper made me say, "Send him in." He looked older, tired, wearing the same tailored suit but without the same weight behind it. He sat across from me, eyes scanning the room. The awards, the name on the glass, Summit Marketing. "You've built something impressive," he said. I stayed quiet. Then he got to it. Harper left. Then 2 more clients followed. Revenue's down. Claire's struggling. "We made a mistake, Grace." I let the words hang. "We'd like to propose a partnership," he continued. "Not you returning to Johnson, but something new. A strategic collaboration." I kept my face neutral. Let him speak. "You bring the innovation, the clarity. We bring legacy client base. It could work." I looked around my office, my name, my systems, my vision. "You didn't believe in me when it counted," I said softly. "I believe in you now," he replied. "But belief after damage doesn't undo the past. Have you ever had the people who doubted you come back not to apologize, but to ask if they can stand beside what you've built alone?" I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because part of me was still processing that he'd come at all. "We're not asking you to come back," he said again, as if repeating it would soften the past. "We're proposing equals. You run Summit. We share select projects, resources. Clients get the best of both." It was smart on paper, strategic, beneficial, but something felt unfinished. "What about Claire?" I asked. He exhaled. "She's considering stepping down. Says the role doesn't fit. She's good with people, yes, but she's not built for long-term direction. She's exhausted." I didn't expect that. And I didn't expect the sting of sadness either. Even after everything, Claire wasn't the enemy, just another part of a system that didn't see clearly until it was too late. He leaned forward. "We know now what we didn't then. You weren't just ready, you were the future." The words should have filled me, but they didn't. Because when validation comes only after the cost has been paid in full, it feels like a receipt, not a gift. I told him to send over the proposal. "I'll review it with my team." He nodded, stood to leave, then paused. "Your mother misses you. So do I." And that landed harder than the business offer, because some debts aren't measured in contracts. They're measured in time lost. And trust takes longer to rebuild. That night, I got a text from Claire. "Do you have 10 minutes I'd like to call?" I stared at the screen for a while, then typed back, "Okay." When her voice came through, it was quiet. No brightness, no pretending. "I heard Dad came to see you," she said. I asked him not to. Why, I asked. "Because I owed you the conversation first," she replied. There was a pause, then she continued. "I wasn't ready for the role. I thought I could grow into it, but all I did was chase your shadow. Everyone kept comparing me to you, and the truth is, I never wanted to lead the company." She let out a shaky breath. "I should have said something. Before the dinner, before it all happened." "So why didn't you?" I asked, soft but firm. "Because I was scared," she said. "Scared that if I turned it down, they'd see me as a failure. Scared that you'd finally see what I already knew, you were always the one who was ready." Her voice cracked. "I'm sorry, Grace, for not stopping it, for standing there when they gave me what you built." I didn't rush to respond, because some apologies need room to breathe. Have you ever heard someone finally say the thing you waited years to hear and realized you no longer needed it to heal, but it still mattered anyway? The next morning, I woke up early, made coffee, sat by the window, and opened a blank document. No headlines, no campaign briefs, just me and the words I'd never said out loud. I started writing a letter. Not to Claire, not to my parents, to myself. To the version of me who stayed late without being asked, who swallowed disappointment in polished silence, who clung to belief that someday effort would be enough. I wrote to the woman who sat at that dinner table smiling through heartbreak, holding in rage because she didn't want to ruin the moment. And to the one who walked out of the company with her dignity intact but her heart in pieces. I wrote about grief, about betrayal, but also about strength. I told her I was proud that she didn't beg, didn't shrink, didn't compromise herself for scraps of recognition. And when I finished, I didn't print it, didn't send it. Just saved it quietly, because it wasn't about them anymore. It was about honoring her, me, the girl who built everything from behind the scenes, and the woman who finally stepped into the light. Have you ever written something not to be read by anyone else, but just to remind yourself you survived it? And that surviving, whoa, was the start of something more. It was a quiet Sunday morning. Monica and I had just finished brunch. We decided to stop by a local art market, a small event tucked into a Denver alleyway. Paintings, jewelry, handmade journals. I was flipping through one of them when I heard a voice. Grace. I turned. It was Elaine. My mother. No suit, no polished heels, just jeans, a cardigan, and that same cautious look in her eyes I hadn't seen since I was a teenager. We stood there for a moment, just looking at each other. I didn't know you were in town, I said, my voice quieter than I meant. We're here for a few days, she replied. Needed a break. Things at the office have been slower. She glanced down, then back up. I saw the feature on Summit. You've done something remarkable, Grace. I nodded. Thank you. There was a pause. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small wrapped item. I wasn't sure I'd run into you, but I bought this for you earlier. Don't ask me why. It was a leather-bound notebook, hand-stitched, blank pages. I thought you might fill it, she said. I didn't know what to say, but I took it. Because not all healing begins with perfect words. Sometimes it starts with just showing up. Have you ever felt something old begin to soften without being solved? That night, I sat at my desk, the market still humming in my memory, my mother's quiet gesture resting beside me. The notebook, still wrapped. I peeled the paper slowly as if it might fall apart if I rushed. The leather felt warm in my hands, soft, lived in, like it had waited a while to belong to someone. I opened it. First page blank. No lines, no structure, just space. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel the urge to write a pitch, a plan, a purpose. I just let the pen move. Not for clients, not for legacy, not to prove I was ready, just to hear my own voice again on a page that asked nothing from me. I wrote one line, I am not what they lost. I am what I found. It wasn't poetry, wasn't polished, but it was real, and I felt it. That small, brave beat in my chest that whispered, this is yours now, not the past, not their vision, not even the wound, just the quiet power of creating again, from within, from truth. Have you ever looked at a blank page and seen not emptiness but a door, and known without question you're finally free to walk through it? The days moved slower now, but not in a restless way. More like a rhythm returning, a breath I'd forgotten how to take. There were still deadlines, clients to serve, team calls and brand launches, but underneath it all, there was space. No one watching my every move, no one measuring me against someone else. Just the quiet trust I was building with myself. One afternoon, I met Monica for coffee. She looked up from her laptop and smiled. You're different lately, she said. Less clenched. I laughed. Is that a compliment? The best kind, she replied. And I knew what she meant. I was no longer chasing something that had always stayed just out of reach. No longer waiting for their approval to mean I belonged. I had already arrived. Not in a grand fireworks way, but in the way your feet feel when they're finally standing on solid ground. It didn't erase the past, but it softened it, reframed it. What they didn't give me taught me how to give it to myself. And that was the gift. Have you ever looked around and realized you no longer need to be seen by the people who once overlooked you because you finally see yourself? It came on a quiet Thursday, an email from Claire. Subject line, if you're willing. I hesitated before opening it. We hadn't spoken since that phone call, since the apology I didn't ask for but needed. Inside was a short message. We've stepped back, the board's bringing in outside leadership. I'm leaving Johnson. I'm relieved. I know this may not matter now, but I've been watching Summit from afar. What you're building, it's everything I couldn't give them. If you ever need someone on the people side of things, I'd be honored just to support you, Grace. No ego, no title, just respect, if you're willing. Claire. I read it twice, then a third time. Not out of disbelief, but because something inside me softened in a way I didn't expect. The version of me from a year ago might have deleted it, might have closed the door just to prove she could. But this version, she didn't carry the same weight anymore. Some wounds don't need to stay open to remind you who you are. Some can close quietly with a nod, a pause, and maybe someday, a beginning of something new. Have you ever been offered peace from someone who once held your silence and realized that forgiveness wasn't for them? It was for you. We met at a quiet cafe near Union Station. No business suits, no laptops, just 2 cups of tea and time. Claire arrived first. She stood when I walked in, unsure whether to hug me. I nodded and we did. Not stiff. Not dramatic. Just human. She looked thinner, softer around the eyes. Less polished, more real. I almost didn't reach out, she said. I didn't want to make it harder. It's not harder, I said. It's just real now. We talked for over an hour. Not about the company, not about who did what or when, but about what it cost us both to try and fit into a shape we were never meant for. She admitted things I hadn't known. The pressure, the doubt, the feeling that she was performing someone else's dream. I thought I had to carry it, she whispered. Because you walked away. I didn't walk away, I said. I walked toward myself. That distinction mattered. We didn't make promises, didn't plan to work together, but we laughed, really laughed for the first time in years. And when we stood to leave, she reached out, not to shake hands, but to hold mine for a second longer. No title, no hierarchy, just 2 sisters finally seeing each other. Have you ever sat across from someone who once stood in your way and realized maybe they were just lost too? That evening, I came home alone. No meetings, no follow-up calls, just me and the quiet that didn't ache anymore. I passed by the mirror in the hallway, stopped, not to fix my hair, not to check my posture, but just to look. There she was, not the girl who stayed late to impress, not the woman who waited to be chosen. Someone else now, someone whole. There were fine lines under my eyes. A new calm in the way my shoulders sat, not rigid, not bracing, just grounded. I didn't need their office anymore, or their title, or their apology, because everything I thought I needed from them, respect, recognition, voice, I had found in my own name, my own company, my own breath. And I saw it so clearly now, the moment I stopped proving was the moment I started living. Some people wait their whole lives for someone to open a door for them. But what no one tells you is you can build your own door, quietly, steadily, without permission. And when you do, you no longer need to knock. Have you ever seen yourself fully and thought you made it? Not there, but here. And here is enough. A few months later, I was invited to speak at a women's leadership panel. Not a fancy gala, just a local event, 50 seats, folding chairs, warm coffee. Exactly the kind of room I used to sit in, taking notes, wondering when it would be my turn. I almost said no, not because I wasn't ready, but because the old part of me still whispered, "You're not the type they put on stages." But I went, not for recognition, not for applause, for the one woman sitting in the back just like I once did, questioning if quiet leadership has value. If being the builder, not the face counts, I told them the truth. About the promotion I didn't get, the silence I stayed inside too long, the company I left, and the one I built. And for the first time, I didn't flinch when I said, "They didn't choose me, so I chose myself." The room went still, not shocked, just seen. Afterward, a young woman came up, notebook in hand. She didn't ask for advice. She just said, "Thank you. I needed to hear that, and I knew my voice, the one I used to fold into silence, now helped someone else unfold theirs." Have you ever spoken your story aloud and realized it wasn't just yours anymore, it had become someone else's permission to begin? It's been a year now. Summit is growing, not fast and loud, but steady and clear. We don't chase headlines. We don't sell flash. We build trust. We build things that last. Monica runs our operations team. We've hired 2 more consultants. Claire sends updates sometimes, photos of her hiking, painting, learning to be someone outside a boardroom. My parents still live in Chicago. The calls are less frequent but softer now, less full of expectation, more rooted in presence. I visit the city sometimes, walk past the old building, but I don't look up, not because I'm bitter, because I don't need to. That chapter is written, not erased, not rewritten, just complete. The story didn't end the way I once imagined. It ended better. Because the girl who once waited to be seen stood up, walked out, and built something of her own. I still keep the leather notebook on my desk. It's halfway full now. Not with strategies, but with reflections, reminders, truths I've earned. And at the top of the last page I wrote, "You don't have to be chosen. You can choose yourself." Have you ever reached the end of something and realized it wasn't your ending after all? Just the first moment you finally took the pen and started writing your own beginning. If this story found a quiet place in you, if it reminded you of a moment you almost gave up or finally stood up, I'd love to know. Share your thoughts below. Your story might be the mirror someone else needs. And if you want more stories like this, real, raw, and honest, hit subscribe. There's more coming, more beginnings, more truth. We're just getting started.